Like most projects, we begin with the data. And this here is a data set that details all of the books on the Goodreads app, and it details like the book title, the author, the average rating, the book's ISBN, number of pages, and how many ratings the book has, and how many text reviews, the publication date, and the publisher. So it really gives you a broad scope about all these different types of books that are on the Goodreads app. And so for me, looking at this, I wondered first, which books have the most reviews? What books have been read the most? And secondly, how do the average ratings of those books compare? Because my first thought would be that a book that's read a lot is probably going to be a liked book, but who knows if that's really true. So I want to see how the average ratings of the books that are read the most and therefore have the most ratings compare. So to do this, we began working with the data, and that is done here. So to begin with that, we kind of set up the graph area here, just setting up some margins and how much space the graph is actually going to take up. We add a title to that area, so I named it the average rating of the most reviewed books. We set up and define the X and Y axis, and then we kind of move it to the right and down some to give room for some titles on the y-axis and the whole graph title. But then here's where we really get into what makes the graph, because see, we first load in that data set that we're looking at. And I define a global variable of data so we could use it in multiple functions. Then I redefine that data as that global variable and apply a filter there. And this is what's really important, where we don't see every single book that's in that data set. So we have it return only the books with over 150,000 ratings. And then here we set the domain of the X and Y axis. So we want the domain of the X axis to be the titles that are returned by the previous declaration. And we want the domain to go from 0 to 5, as the only available ratings are 0 to 5. And then here we want to add some information to the x-axis, which is the book title names. And then we also add the y-axis title, which is the average rating. Lastly, we actually add in that y-axis with the tick marks of the 0.51, 1.5, all the way up to 5. Here, we truly add in those bars and add the rectangles that also have the functions that we will go over in a second, the mouse over and mouse out. And we get the information of these bars from these two attributes here of adding in and returning the title and the average rating. And then, so we learn some more from just the 2D graph. I added in this tooltip here that tells you the specific average rating, since sometimes it can be difficult to see that when you're on bars farther out from the y-axis, as well as it tells you how many reviews or ratings that book has gotten, so you can kind of see the leverage of what that rating can have. But like I mentioned, I do have some few functions here. This here is the mouse over function, and it allows the bar to be highlighted in a different color to emphasize what bar you're hovering over. And then, of course, a mouse out function to take away that highlight when you're no longer over the bar. And then, of course, we have some styles up at the top to add a little color to the visualization. So now what all of this creates is my visualization here. Of course, we see the average rating of the most reviewed books, our title, the titles of the books on the x-axis, and the average rating. And upon first glance, we do see that the average rating doesn't vary a whole lot. You can see most are above 3.5, all to about 4.5. So there's not a huge variation And from 0 to 5, we could say that the books with the most reviews, which is all of those books here, have above average reviews, ratings. So my first thought does seem to be true, that books that are read a lot are generally regarded as good books, books that have a high rating. But as we get to books out in here, it's kind of hard to tell what specific average rating this book has. So when we use our tooltip, that bar gets highlighted in green, and we see that it has an average rating of 3.8 and a lot of reviews, approximately 2 million. But then we can move here to get a detailed description from the documentation page of the visualization.